You never know how much time you have. For me, that stopped being an idea and became reality on August 22nd, 2021. The doctors put me on a ventilator and told my wife to call hospice so she could prepare for the day they planned to pull the plug. 6 weeks later, I woke up to an entirely different reality. I could not walk, I could not talk, I could not even lift my own arm. And I woke up realizing something else. I had not made the right preparations for my family. The plans I thought were pretty good fell through when it mattered most. That is why Fiduciary Alchemy welcomes voices that would have warned me about the holes in my plans. My hope is that you live a long and prosperous life, but I also hope you make better plans than I did. So tune in, take notes, and stay with us through the end when Bluesman Grindle and the Compliance Choir bring a word of caution.
Today, I want to welcome Jack Oujo. He is the founder of Oujo Wealth Strategies. They are one of the nation's largest tax-focused wealth management firms. He's also the author of the book, Too Smart to Be an Umpire. Now, before all this, he spent 8 years as a professional umpire in the minor leagues, advancing to AAA. He's also been an Vantech's top producer for 25 years and the #1 producer for 10 consecutive years. Today, he shares how tax expertise and persistence built a multi-generational advisory practice. Jack, welcome.
It's a pleasure to talk to you today, Craig. I'm excited to speak with you.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, one of the things that really caught my eye was when I saw you were a minor league umpire, and I, uh, I I love. Well, I haven't been to a minor league game in a while, but I love the concept of minor league. I feel like Major League Ball has gotten out of the hands, out of the reach of your average American, and minor league is kind of what it feels like it should have been. It feels like what Major League should have been.
Yeah, I always said the problem with the minor leagues is that it's called the minor leagues. You have some of the best baseball players in the world just short of the major league level. So the talent is really incredible. There's a fine line between people in the minor leagues and the people in the major leagues. And because they're not making any money, it allows the fans to attend the games at a very, very reasonable price. And there's a lot of entertainment for kids. And I've been a season ticket holder for the Lakewood, New Jersey team for many years. We give a lot of the tickets to our clients, but it's a cheap way to have a lot of fun, especially if you love baseball.
Yeah, I used to live in Raleigh, and I would go to Durham Bulls games,
Yeah.
and I saw Andrew Jones in Durham the same season he got called up, and he hit a home run in the World Series.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool. I remember when I was in AA, I had Jose Canseco in Huntsville, and I didn't know of his future stardom. And he hit a home run one time, and I was behind the plate. And when he hit it, I just out loud went, "Holy shit!" Me and the catcher were both shocked. That somebody can hit the ball that far. It was like, I'm dating myself. The old Munsters episode when Herman Munster was trying out for the Dodgers, he hit a ball so far. But I was blessed in the minor leagues when I was there to see a lot of future big leaguers, many Hall of Famers.
Yeah. Well, and it was amazing. And I live on the south side of Austin. Our minor league teams up in Round Rock, and that's an onerous drive, so I don't go up there. But when I saw Andrew Jones, I paid $7. I'm sitting there watching, like you said, world-class ball for $7.
We have the Lakewood Blue Claws tickets that we have or now they're called the Jersey Shore Blue Claws, I believe. I think we pay $1,500 a year for 4 season tickets, 5 rows behind home plate. We also have, I'm a low life New York Jets fans, and I think that's about we pay for 4 tickets for one game to see the Jets, over $1,000. So there's certainly an entertainment value there for the average person seeing a minor league game. That's for sure.
Yeah. Do you know who John Spolstra is?
No, that rings a bell.
Well, his son is the coach of the Miami Heat.
Okay.
We're switching.
Eric Spoelstra. Yeah,
Yeah.
that name. Yeah.
So John did a lot. As a matter of fact, he was with the New Jersey Nets. I realize we're switching sports, but I'm going to switch back to baseball. Uh, he was uh, he was with the New Jersey Nets in the late '90s, and he's a marketer and he packed the stands.
Right.
But when he left basketball, he got into minor league baseball.
Yeah.
And what's the team out Staten Island? That was one of the first teams he started working
It's
with.
Staten Island Yankees.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's who they are. Yeah.
So he's the one that brought the LED back wall to baseball.
Oh, wow. Wow. Very interesting. I remember when I was in the minor leagues, I asked Bob Rich. People may remember Coffee Rich was a creamer, and the Buffalo Bills Stadium used to be called Rich Stadium after the family. And I went to him because I was a poor minor league umpire. I said, tell me, how does somebody go about owning a minor league team? And they drew over 1 million fans in Buffalo. And he looks at me and he goes, you know, Jack, it really wasn't that hard. He goes, I bought the Wichita Arrows for $250,000 in Kansas. I then convinced the politicians and the taxpayers to build and pay for a stadium that I did not pay for. Then I simply moved the team here. And if you think about it, the major leagues are paying for the players. So I have tickets, people coming in, I have concessions, and it's just a money machine. And that's when I really started to understand that I was on the wrong side of capitalism as a minor league umpire, when he was practically laughing at what an easy business it was. And they've been a very successful franchise in the minor leagues.
Yeah. Wow. So how did you go from baseball to wealth management?
Well, my story is that it sounds weird, but it was actually very practical. When I was going to college, my parents had no money to send me to college. And my next door neighbor growing up was a guy named Ed Sanicky. He played for the Philadelphia Phillies, one of the few people in Major League Baseball history that had a home run in his first at bat off of Rip Sewell. And he umpired as a hobby, and he knew I was a high school catcher on a state championship team. And he said, Jack, I think you'd be a terrific umpire. You're behind the plate, and I think you'd be good at it. And I go, I don't want to get yelled at. That sounds horrible. And he goes, well, what else are you going to do to make money? So I took his advice. And I took up umpiring, and I ended up liking it a lot. Paid for a lot of expenses when I was in college. And by the time I graduated college, I was umpiring state finals. College assigners were trying to sneak me on college games. The major league umpire, Bill Kunkel, saw me work and said, if you were in the major leagues now, you'd be one of the best ones. All this positive stuff. So I graduated from Seton Hall with a degree in accounting. And I figured, well, let me give this a try. The major leagues is a pipe dream, but I'll just go try out just so that when I'm the age I am now, I wouldn't have any regrets in life. And I went to umpire school, not expecting anything, and they took me. And I ended up going through the minor leagues very, very, very quickly. I only spent 2 years in A ball before I went to Double A, which is almost unheard of for an umpire. I made it to Triple A. My contract was bought after my fourth season, and it started to get really, really serious. And I ended up getting released after if you had 3 years in Triple A and the big leagues didn't take you, they put in a policy where you got released. And my problem was I beat a lot of people who just recently retired with long careers. I got to AAA too quick, I believe, in retrospect.
Huh.
But anyway, I formed an accounting business, and then I realized I'm doing tax returns, and I'm seeing these stockbrokers screwing so many people. And I was always interested on the investment side, and I got into wealth management, and the business just crushed. It just took off. And I realized that, when I got released from baseball, I decided to reinvent myself through education. My wife and I sat down, and I spent 3.5 to 4 years. I passed all 4 parts of the CPA exam the first time I sat for it after being in the minor leagues 8 years. I passed the certified financial planner exam. I got a master's degree in taxation, securities, and insurance license. And I was thinking, if I'm going to go into business, I want to be better than everybody else. I want to start with good equipment, which is knowledge. And then I'm going to try to take lessons I learned from baseball and incorporate them into business. And let's see where this goes. And it ended up, no pun intended, being a home run. So
That's awesome.
great. Yeah. So, go ahead. Sorry.
So you said that you saw the stockbrokers screwing people. What was it you saw that bothered you?
Schedule D, gains and losses. there were a lot of losses on Schedule D, and I just didn't think and it's anecdotal. I'm just looking at the tax returns of the people I worked on. And I also realized that the broker over at ABC brokerage firm is driving around in a boat, and thought they were making a lot more money with a lot less expertise. And I thought, if you could combine accounting with investing, that could be a really good thing. Now, back in the early 90s, CPAs were not allowed to accept commissions. So, my partner and I at the time helped change New Jersey law to allow CPAs to accept commissions. I write about that in my book, Too Smart to Be an Umpire. I read about a Texas CPA named Herb Vest who was trying to make this happen. And he ended up starting a firm that I became affiliated with for many years. He was like the pioneer in CPAs getting involved in the wealth management side. And there's really been no competition in this field. The accounting profession is basically a paranoid profession in that you're taking historical data, turning it into a financial statement, and being petrified about being sued for it. And now you're asking those same people to predict the future, and they just can't get over that hurdle. And I got over the hurdle 30 years ago, and I found it to be almost a competition-free business, being able to take tax and accounting knowledge and bring the investment world into that, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of my frustrations with CPAs is I'm the one going to them with tax ideas, with tax deduction ideas. I had to go to my CPA with the Augusta rule. And I'm like, hey, have you heard the Augusta rule? And he's like, oh yeah. I'm like, why am I telling you? And and then more recently,
that's just it. Getting out in front of people. And I remember the comedian George Carlin.
yeah.
And George Carlin said, "It's my job to think of goofy shit." And I said that to my clients. It's my job, not goofy shit, but to think of out of the box ideas to help people achieve their goals, and then use the tax law where appropriate to your advantage to help people. And again, I've said it many times, taxes come in second place to making good decisions. But if you could do things with the tax law legitimately, legally, morally, ethically, that help people, you want to be the one coming up with the ideas, not the client. That's for sure.
Well, and the thing that hits me is, if you're buying an equity, or if you're buying a basket of equities, and you're getting 10, 12% return, you're pretty happy. But it's uncertain. If you go in and you do the same thing in tax, you can get some pretty amazing returns. That's a lot more certain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can combine both of them. You make a lot of people very happy. I found, though, what I was able to bring to the world, and it ended up working, was instead of focusing on promising people 8 to 10% a year, because I think that's foolhardy, because that rarely happens, by the way. If you go back and look at S&P 500 performance, the market rarely performs in any one year at high single digits, even though that's what everybody prognosticates at the beginning of the year. I focused on worst case scenarios for people. So if somebody was my client, I would project out the next 15 or 20 years, and I would put in there what would have happened if the Depression happened again. What would happen if 1999 to 2008 occurs? We would look at worst case scenarios to see if the strategies we were putting in would help sustain people into their retirement. Because I found that most people just want to know if they're going to make it. The media puts out, you have to beat the S&P 500, and it gets people to do decisions that are not in their best interest, in my view. My sports background, when I'm dealing with clients, is we just want to win, okay? And I would have to coach people on that. Are you trying to beat the S&P 500, or do you want to make sure you don't run out of money when you're 85 years of age? Like, what are we trying to frickin' accomplish here? And by focusing on worst case scenarios, when 1999 to 2002 occurred, when 2008 occurred, the strategies I put in for our clients helped sustain them. We didn't lose anybody during those periods, and we were picking up people left and right. So I write a whole chapter about that in my book. The chapter's called "It's the Income, Stupid," and you have to be able to protect people when things are bad. That was the key for our success, in my view, on the investment side, if you will.
As you were talking about that, actually, a baseball ball story came to mind. It kind of reminded me of the Moneyball story of, hey, we're not out to hit home runs. We're going to win by reliably getting on base.
Yes, exactly. And to draw a baseball analogy, if you're a nerdy baseball fan like me, if you're winning a baseball game 8-0 in the top of the ninth inning, and the other team has runners on second and third base with nobody out, are you moving the infield in to prevent a run from being scored, or are you playing the infield back to get an out? You're playing the infield back because all you want to do is win the freaking game. And the media has taught people, oh no, you have to win 8-0. You have to crush your opponent. And in sports, Bobby Knight wrote a book called The Power of Negative Thinking. And he wrote a whole book on how he thought basketball games were lost rather than being won. And in baseball, if you look at a box score of a game, teams lose usually because of one bad inning. Golfers lose tournaments because of one bad hole. And I wanted to make sure that my clients didn't endanger their retirement because of one bear market or one bad investment, if you will. So that a big lesson in sports is learning how to win and take a win. I said before, as a Jets fan, everybody knows Joe Namath was the MVP of Super Bowl III. Many people don't know that he didn't throw one pass in the fourth quarter of that game. He did what he had to do to get the win. Okay. That's a name synonymous with success. Iconic football player, didn't throw one freaking pass in the fourth quarter. Okay. People don't remember that now. And so with my clients, I've tried to, because a lot of people in retirement, they became millionaires. And now that they've been comfortable with the stock market, they might get too comfortable with the stock market and they need to reel it in. Younger people that are in their 30s are watching the freaking 401k every day, not realizing they should be probably fully invested, that they got so much time on their hands, they should be embracing market declines. So people are different. They're in different stages of life, and they have to do what they have to do to win at their own financial game, in my view.
Yeah. There's something else. There's a baseball analogy, and it's funny. I'm not a big baseball fan, but there's some really interesting lessons that I find. One of them that I talk about is the margin of excellence, and I'll ask folks. I'll say there's 750 batters in the major leagues. How many do you think batted over 300? And you'd be shocked the range of answers I get.
Right.
And then I'll ask them how many batted below 200. And again, people get that wrong. And the punchline is very, very few bat above 300, like potential Hall of Famers. You bat below 200, you're getting sent down to the minors.
Right.
And so like the difference between being the best of the best and almost out of a job is out of 10 times at bat, just get on base one more time.
It's a very small percentage. To bring that to the investment world, if you look at, and I'm being nerdy here, but if you look at withdrawal rates, okay, if somebody would have invested 100% of their money in the S&P 500 in 1999 and withdrew at 7%, at some point they would have ran out of money. And if they withdrew at 4%, they would have done very well for themselves. So those small percentages for investors, whether it's expense ratios, but I think the big thing is withdrawal rates for retirees, they become a big deal too, getting back to winning at their own game, if you will.
Yeah. I want to ask you, so that I listened to one of your interviews on Monday Morning Radio. And I heard you say a few things that really intrigued me. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was you're a big fan of paying off the mortgage. Get the mortgage paid off, get that behind you. What's your thinking there?
Well, it has to be done properly. I would, if somebody's in their 30s and 40s, I would rather have them max out their 401k plan and do the right things first before they reduce their mortgage debt. It is a goal for most clients in my practice to have their mortgage paid off by the time they retire, if you will. I'm not opposed to these people out there with 2 or 3% mortgages to hold on to them. That's not a problem for me. It's for the most part, I want people to have their mortgages paid off. And the reason for that is, from a tax point of view, the standard deduction for a married couple is over $30,000 right now. So if you have a $500,000 mortgage and you're at 5% interest, okay, that's $25,000 a year in mortgage interest. You have your real estate taxes and some charity. You're barely getting to that number. Most people are not getting to get the deduction from mortgage interest because their standard deduction is so high. And they think they're getting this great tax write-off when under tax reform, when President Trump came in, that really isn't the case anymore. So there's not a big tax advantage for doing that. The second thing is when you're leveraging your mortgage against the stock market in retirement, not for people in their 30s and 40s, but for people in retirement, the stock market often has long periods of time of zero performance. So if you're retiring at 65 and we have another 1999 to 2008 on our hands, 1929 to 1944, the Arab oil embargo in the 1970s, you're seeing your money go down in value and you're paying interest. That's a really bad thing to have happen. The market's gone down 5 times by almost 50% in the last 100 years. If there was 100 houses in your neighborhood and 5 of them were burning down, you would make sure you had the right insurance in place, if you will. I think it's too big of a risk to be carrying a mortgage in retirement and then having to pay for groceries during a bear market and still pay mortgage interest. I think it's a huge mistake. I was proven right on it in 2008. And for people in their 30s and 40s, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it for people that have pensions, especially if they have cost of living increases. I have a problem with people having mortgages. They're leveraging it against the stock market in retirement. This bit, I'm going to make 8 to 10% a year. It shakes out that way over long periods of time. But I put these returns actually in Too Smart to Be an Umpire. I outline the last 30 years of performance. People can look for themselves and see what the S&P 500 did every year. So I also think a lot of market returns come from the behavior of the investor. And when the stock market goes down 20 or 30% and you're paying mortgage interest, people panic, and that's when they sell. We're managing $800 million. When the stock market goes down 10 or 20%, we may get 1 or 2 phone calls in a 6-week period of time. Okay, not 6 hours, 6 weeks, because people have been coached through those scenarios and they know they're okay with the way we've arranged their finances. So you're not getting the tax deduction that you think you're getting. And at the worst possible time for you to take on risk in your 60s and 70s, I just think the mortgage payment is like a bond equivalent, if you will. And again, I write a chapter and a half on the mortgage interest deduction in my book. But there's always exceptions. So it's not an absolute, but it's like a 90% in my view.
Well, let me throw something out. It was a recent decision I made, and you're most welcome to say, "Hey, Craig, I think you made a mistake." That won't bother me.
Sure.
But we moved back in December, and I took out a small mortgage on our new house, and the thought was basically this. I follow some economists that are saying, "Hey, they've been predicting high inflation forever, for 16 years or more." And they say that, the taming of the current inflation is just temporary. It's going to start ticking up again. I remember one of my professors in school said, inflationary times are great times to be borrowers. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at this chunk of money. I decided I'd rather invest that in my business because I think I can use that to grow my business while I'm expecting inflation to kind of tick up. So the real value of that expense will be shrinking with time. And that was kind of the basis of my decision. And if you think it was a bad decision, please tell me.
I don't think that's a bad decision. I think borrowing to expand your business is a smart decision because you'll make a lot more money on the business, and that interest that you're paying will be paltry. That's a very practical reason for doing that. When I started my business, I borrowed on credit cards because nobody had any money to give me. So you have this guy yelling at you to pay off your mortgage that's borrowing on freaking credit cards to start his business. You do what you have to do to get rolling. Okay, what I believe would be a mistake is if you find yourself 70 years of age and the house is paid off and you're ready to sell the business or retire from the business, and then see somebody on CNBC going, "I think the market's going to go up 15% a year for the next 7 years." You take out a big mortgage on your house. That I would be fighting with you on. For the reason you did it, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not an absolute. It's for the most part type of advice.
Well, and I think that's kind of the point. That's why folks need folks like you in their lives. Is It's not a simple, I mean, this is not a dig on Dave Ramsey. I think Dave Ramsey's done amazing things, but Dave Ramsey's advice is simple, compact for the masses.
I like Dave Ramsey, but I think he goes too far on the uh, mortgage interest point. Again, my house is, I have not had, I'm 67. I haven't had a mortgage on my house in 25 years, living in this big fancy place here in South Florida. When I tell people I have no mortgage on it, they're very surprised by it. There's no debt. I realize that a lot of people, having done tax returns over the years, that are big fans of the mortgage interest deduction, don't have any money. They think they're leveraging it against something else. And I see they have no money or investments in their life. I think of all the money that my wife and I have saved over time by not paying mortgage interest. And now we have lots of money. Okay. There's tons. The money we receive in interest is a tremendous amount of money now, because it starts to go the other way. And I also think when people, because I've seen it, when people pay off their mortgage, it makes them feel good that that part of their life is done with. Now they go to another phase. They've maxed out their 401ks, and now they build up a brokerage account or some other type of investment that builds up into a nice pile of money. And going back to the tax point of view, when people in their 60s, 70s, 80s and are withdrawing money, if they have non-IRA money that's invested in municipal bonds and tax-favored dividends, they can get that money out along with IRA money. They could probably withdraw it about $150,000 to $200,000 a year and still stay in the 12% tax bracket or less if they manage those withdrawals properly. So I'm very sensitive to taxes, but mortgage isn't. If people do the math, they're going to see the mortgage really isn't helping them all that much.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. And for me, it was just simply that of I'm expecting inflation to start ticking up again, and I feel like I can do more with that money in my business.
100. You're. I have no issue with that at all. In fact, I'd probably be encouraging you to do the same thing. I'm the type of advisor out there that likes to say yes. You know, as a parent, when your kids ask you something, it's always safe to say no. You can never get in trouble. No, you can't stay out past 11 o'clock tonight. There's nothing wrong with saying, you're not getting in trouble by saying, I tried to find a way to yes. And I tried to talk people through it where maybe they would come to the conclusion that it was a bad idea. For what you're doing it, I would have no problem with it. And I'd be cheering you on probably.
Oh, that's good. That's encouraging.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I heard you talk about was whole life insurance. And I've gone a little bit of a gyration. I heard the Dave Ramsey advice, which is never get whole life. And then I had some clients that talked about it, and the first thing they told me was most people selling whole life are crooked. They're maxing out their commission, and they're not putting together the best plan. They said, we usually do 50-50 premium and paid up additions.
Mm-hmm.
And they openly say it doesn't make sense for everybody. And then I run into some infinite bankers, and they, just thinking about them, they make my skin crawl. At least the ones I talk to. And so I've heard so many conflicting opinions about whole life insurance. Help me understand where you're coming from.
The whole life insurance, my problem with it is that the cash value is a fixed return, if you will. And if you're buying $100,000 of whole life insurance, if you think about it as the cash value builds up, you're only buying the insurance. That's the difference that's in there. An alternative to whole life insurance, which I don't have a problem with, is variable universal life insurance, whereby, and it's basically one of the few tax loopholes that are out there. And it has to meet a certain criteria. Usually somebody with a six-figure income, they've paid down debt, they've taken care of 529s, 401k plans, and they have this other pot of money they want to invest in, again, outside of a brokerage account. You take a sum of money a month, say $1,000 a month, and you go to the insurance company and you buy the least amount of insurance you can, so that it fits the tax definition of insurance. And you put most of the money into investments like mutual funds or ETFs. I don't even know if ETFs can go in them. And you build up this cash value that you can borrow against at some point in the future. These are good things to do if you have a litigious business, because it's protected in a bankruptcy, if you will. And I remember when Eileen and I bought our first place down here in South Florida, we had to come up with $400,000, and she saw where I got 200,000 from, and she goes, "Where did that $200,000 come from?" And I said, "Oh, I took a loan on the variable universal life policy." And she goes, "I forgot we even had that thing." And I go, "Yeah, it's for things like that. It's for funny money. It's for a big withdrawal. It's for wedding of our kid. It's to get our hands on something and not take the tax hit on another type of investments. And by the way, if I were to die, there's also a life insurance, tax-free life insurance benefit that works." And I've done that with people, especially when I knew clients were bad at saving money. Okay, and they had this. So I think variable universal life is a very good alternative. I've done that successfully with many people. Whole life, I've sold one whole life insurance policy in 35 years, and that's for somebody that had a medical issue, and it was the only way they were going to get insurance. I've sold one policy. I have no problem with cash value policies as part of buy-sell agreements, non-qualified deferred compensation arrangements, and certainly with wealthy people, second to die policies. That helps pay for estate taxes. That's how Magic Johnson found out he had the AIDS virus back in the day. But whole life insurance, the math just doesn't work on it. There's other alternatives, in my view. Yeah. And they're often done. People that buy that often can't afford to fund their 401k plan. You know what I mean? They're putting money in a whole life insurance because some salesman told them to do it instead of putting money into a tax deductible 401k plan, which is stupid, in my view.
Yeah. I was, so I was looking for a guest for this podcast, and somebody connected me with a couple infinite bankers, and I started asking. They gave their spiel. They did most of the talking,
Right.
and I think I asked them. I said, "Well, hey, if I have 100K that I want to invest in my business, or if I need 100K from my business, why would I put it in whole life and then borrow against it and experience the loss of that? Why don't I just put it straight in the business?"
Yeah. If you already had the money in the life insurance, in a variable universal life insurance policy, that would be the time to take it out and put it into your business or something along those lines, because you could do it tax free and still maintain the policy. I would never borrow money to put it into an insurance policy. That's for sure. That's crazy. I think that's malpractice. I think it's borderline malpractice.
Well, when I asked them that, and the second one came in and he said, "Here, let me try it," and he did basically the same spiel, and I said, "I just don't understand," and they huffed and basically said, "Well, I see." He literally said this. "Well, I see. I just wasted my time," and they were sitting there trying to make me feel stupid for not understanding their answer.
You never make a client feel stupid. You have to make clients feel empowered. I try to be like Dr. Phil, where I want my clients to come up with the answer. And oftentimes I'll say that. I'll sit there and I go, "I know the answer to this question. And I at some point I'll give it to you if I'm not getting through to you. I want you to come through. I want you to be able to tell me what the right answer is and why. That's how I know I would have communicated with you." The other thing, at the beginning of this conversation, I was mentioning all those freaking letters I put next to my name. The reason to do that is so that you can see the whole picture and you could recognize all kinds of issues, the goofy shit I was talking to you about before. I think a lot of those bankers may be coming to you actually thinking they're doing the right thing. They just don't have the knowledge where they realize there's better alternatives out there for people. And I think they might have been genuinely trying to help you. They just didn't have the knowledge to see the whole picture, in my view.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I have many weaknesses, but rarely does somebody say that I'm not smart enough to understand what they're saying. And it's like when I see that, I'm like, yeah, I don't trust you.
I one of the benefits I've had in my life is I've also coached kids, and if I had to be able to have the ability to teach 14-year-olds what to do when there's a runner on first base and a ball hit down the left field line, execute a double cutoff so you could throw out the potential winning run at home plate, which we were able to do the year we won the state championship. And I had to do that with children. So now you have to have the ability as an advisor to talk about complicated subjects in a way that are simple for people to understand without making people feel stupid. That you have to humble yourself and not show people how smart you are, but make them feel good about their situation in a genuine way. That's the secret to being a good advisor, in my view.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of something that happened in my life. When I moved down to Texas, this is when I was still in corporate America. I was moving in a competitive situation. I hired an attorney to figure out what was legit because they overwrite the non-competes,
Mhm.
and the company that was bringing me in, they put an attorney, a very senior attorney on it. And I remember I was on one call and he's talking to my attorney and he says, if I hear what you're saying correctly, you're saying that, North Carolina has no severability clause, so either the entire employment agreement is valid or none of it's valid. My attorney never said that, but my attorney was like, yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I just admired the genius of that attorney for making sure my attorney came out as a hero.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you're a professional, every accountant or attorney wants to be a hero to their clients. That's the number one thing that an advisor is looking for. And for the attorney to do that was very smart of him or
Yeah.
her.
Well, let's wrap up and talk about your book. What's Too Smart to Be an Umpire? What's the inspiration of that title?
Yeah, the original when I wrote the book, again, the purpose of the book was that I think a lot of people are interested in baseball and how does somebody be a minor league umpire, have no money and a pregnant wife, and create a multi-million-dollar business that's arguably one of the most successful one in the country. How does that work? I thought that people would find value in that story. How to start a business, grow it, sell it. How does all that work? That is in the book. So that's why I wrote the book. The title was always Plan B. All my files are saved as Plan B. But I wrote a chapter in there. My last year in AAA, I was in, for baseball fans, I was in the old Rosenblatt Stadium in Omaha, Nebraska, where they played the College World Series for many years. I had a game in AAA, and Dick Butler, who was a supervisor of umpires for the American League, came to the game unbeknownst to us, and I was the home plate umpire. And when the game ended, he took us out to dinner, didn't say a word about the game until I brought up the subject. And I said, Mr. Butler, I've been in the minor leagues 8 years now. I'd like to know where I stand with you guys. What do you think? And he goes, well, Jack, he goes, I think you called a really good ball game. He goes, there was only one pitch I disagreed with during the game. To be perfectly honest with you, I think you're too smart to be an umpire. And I was dumbfounded. I didn't know where to go with that. And there was another supervisor there, Barney Deary, who put people in the major leagues for years and then was demoted. He looked at me like, I don't know what to freaking tell you, Jack. I don't know what to say to you. And when I wrote that chapter, the publisher and my editor were like, that's the title of your book right there. And I was afraid of offending umpires with it. And I've had 5 major league umpires reach out to me to tell me how much they loved the book. Their spouses loved the book. One of them, Brian Gorman, wrote a great review online about it, that the book is aptly titled, appropriately titled. So the umpires are not insulted by it, which makes me feel good. But that's the reason for the title of the book, the direct answer to your question.
Yeah. And at high level, what would somebody get out of the book?
What they get out of the book is that you can set high goals for yourself. If you're teaching children, you could say, here, this guy tried to be a major league umpire and came that close to it. A couple breaks here or there, he would have achieved it. When he didn't achieve it, he fell back on his education, on a lot of education, and was still able to have a really nice, happy life for himself. And he shows you exactly how to do it in this book. I think it's a great book for college students and anybody trying to reinvent their career.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we were talking a little bit in the green room about when I was recovering coming out of the hospital.
Sure.
I set high goals. There's some goals I've never hit, but I've recovered to a higher level than, very, very few people survived the ventilator. And when I hear stories about other ones who did, I'm like miles ahead of them just by continually setting high goals.
Absolutely. And the goals have to be realistic. When I set my goals in baseball, I did have an education to fall back on if it didn't work out. When I was borrowing on credit cards to start the business along with a partner, we had a written business plan using math where we outlined how the numbers looked. And when people do that analysis on their own, when they're setting goals, they may find that the goal is not realistic or unattainable, and they can come up with another goal, if you will. So the goal setting's got to be realistic. And again, in Too Smart to Be an Umpire, I show people how to do that.
Yeah, I'm assuming we can get that on Amazon.
That's on Amazon. I'll give a shameless plug with the picture right there, me calling a steal play at a Los Angeles Dodgers game. But the book's on Amazon. There's a website, toosmarttobeanumpire.com, and also Oujo Wealth Strategies. All the information is on there if somebody wants to get it.
Excellent. And how can folks reach you if they need to reach you?
If they go to Oujo Wealth Strategies, they can email me. My email address is jack@oujowealth.com. I'm pretty easy to find. And I'm at this stage in my life where I sold the business to two of our employees. I turned down private equity money to do it because I think that's what a fiduciary does, try to do the right thing. And I'm just here to help people. I have college students reach out to me once a month that want me to help them connect the dots. I have advisors reach out to me. So I'm between my lousy golf game and my grandchildren, I have some extra time on my hands now.
Well, that's awesome. Jack, thanks for coming on Fiduciary Alchemy.
Thank you for having me, Craig. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for tuning in to Fiduciary Alchemy, the coolest financial podcast you're likely to find. We go looking for voices like the one you just heard because I want you to dodge the mistakes that I made and learn it without the coma, without the drama, without nearly paying the man. I don't know why I lived when so many others died. That part's still a mystery. Now some folks ask, Craig, what is it you do? Well, I'm telling you now, that's no mystery at all. We solve hard marketing problems in crowded markets so good folks like our guests can rise above the noise, become visible, memorable, irresistible, and grow like never before. If organic growth is your problem, reach out, call me. Let's make a plan and bring your next steps into the light. But don't leave yet. Stick around a minute more and listen to Bluesman Grendel and the Compliance Choir deliver a word of caution just for you.
This podcast is for information, education, that is all. It is not financial, tax, or legal advice to guide your call. Nothing here's an offer, nothing here's a buy or sell. No recommendation, no solicitation. I'm saying it plain and well.
Plain and well. Plain and well.
Past performance ain't no promise of what tomorrow brings. Markets turning, people lose on all kinds of hopeful things. Every investment carries risk. Principle can fade away. What works for one won't fit us all. That truth is here to stay.
Fade away.
Fade away.
Here to stay.
Yeah, that's the compliance blues. Lord, the compliance blues. Get your own financial, tax, and legal help before you make your move. That's the compliance blues. Oh, yeah. Your situation's yours alone. Your needs are not the same. Different facts and different goals can change the whole damn game. So talk to somebody qualified before you choose your road.
Educational too.
Get qualified financial, tax, and legal advice that is right for you.